Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is 12 noon exactly, so I'm glad that we are able to get things at in. And before I introduce our esteemed guests here and give you a little bit of a background, I want to tell you that we want people to ask questions. So if you are going to be on uh, Zoom, you can certainly ask questions through the Q&A that's at the bottom of the screen, and we'll be looking out for that. If you're watching on YouTube, there is no problem. You can actually send questions at biztek.org, which I did put it out there. That's questions at biztek.org. And we're monitoring that too. We've got people who are monitoring that. We'll update the questions here. So, with that, first and foremost, I'm very pleased that we have Lin Classon, who's the Senior Vice President of Platform Strategies for Kognitiv Corporation, and she'll explain what that means. But I'm going to give you a little of the background why you did not want to miss this conversation. Lynn's got a pretty impressive background. She managed the marketing sales role at United, and it was a global role coming from an airline industry, I can tell you. Those who dealt with them in Rosemont, Illinois, would know they are one of the largest airlines in the world, and certainly connected with Air Canada and Aeroplan because they've been around for many, many years, done some wonderful things. And if you fly like crazy, you may have 1K. The other good thing is that she spent time in important role in McKinsey. So I don't know if people don't know McKinsey's. They are a global name in consulting, and so she was there. She's also was the global product marketing manager for Google, and so these positions are extremely well, and a few other things she's done. With what we're going to talk about now, she's senior vice president of platform strategies, and she'll give you her background. I'm just giving you a top level that you can see it even on LinkedIn, wherever. So, Lynn, first and foremost, good morning. I'm very pleased that you are here on such an important topic. So, why don't you give us your background a little bit, and so we can position this thing.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the introduction. And I always just like to add, I also have a PhD in theater and performance studies. And the reason why I want to bring it up is because when you're talking about theater production, it is all about collaboration. So, with everything that I've done and all the experiences I have been through, I feel like what we're doing at Kognitiv is almost like a logical combination of my life so far. So I'm very excited.
Fantastic. That's actually pretty good. And it's a good reference to that. By the way, in case I didn't probably say it, my name is Bashir Fancy. I'm the founder and CEO for BIZTEK. But we are less important in this event today. It's about this subject and about Lynn. So we'll talk about the other part if there's time. So, Lynn, considering what we're talking about today, and you shared your background, why it's very relevant to this topic, and we're talking about building a collaborative future. You just explained that. But we're discussing kind of how Kognitiv is a collaborative commerce and how it works, because it really impacts everybody else out there. One, can you start by maybe telling us, what does collaborative commerce mean? And what is the problem that you are really solving?
Yep. So just a very simple sentence, right? Collaborative commerce is when brands come together, working together, and share their excess goods and services to create additional value for their shared consumers based on a shared understanding. So you can hear that I am using the word shared or collaboration or collaborative or partnership throughout this conversation, because that is really the ethos of what we're trying to do here. And that is also what we believe the solution to solve a lot of things that we're looking at across the board should be based on. So you asked a great question, what are we looking to solve with this collaborative commerce platform we're bringing to the market? So I would say, just for starters, there are two trends and they're interconnected. One is the ever-growing importance of the third-party aggregators in our economy and also for brands to be able to connect with their customers, the brand's customers. But, I feel like I don't need to preach to the choir for the audience, right? Because we probably all see the growth of these companies. Amazon, Facebook, Google, they have all posted amazing financial report during the pandemic, when a lot of businesses are not doing well. And it is because they are in between the suppliers and the creators, the brands, right, and the consumers. So they are in because they control the audience, they control the demand, and so they are able to extract a lot of value from the supply and demand value chain. However, brands are forced to participate in this third-party ecosystem because it is getting more and more expensive to actually acquire customer attention. So the solution that we are building here and bringing to the market is one way, and we believe it is a one cost-efficient way to really get back to the basic. How do you engage with your customers, especially in this day and age? How do you get consumers to ignore the convenience of the third-party aggregators and instead want to engage with you? That is what we're here to solve. Because if I may be sort of brutally honest, the way I see it, brands are caught in a vicious cycle, right? They are caught in the network effect that are generated by the third-party aggregators, whereas the third-party aggregators are actually benefiting greatly from the network effect. They have stores participating, they have consumers, right? And when you have more stores, you have more consumers. When you have more consumers, you have more data. When you have more data, they are in between. They keep all the data. Now these customers that are supposed to be yours, now those customers are theirs. Right. So they're not sharing the data with you. And actually, when I go on Amazon, when I buy something, I can't remember what brand I buy it from. Right. So you are all in effect commoditized. And what we're trying to do here is to break you out of that vicious cycle.
In a sense, although just a side thing from this, doesn't it mean, based on what you just said, it could mean that a likes of Amazon, whoever the third-party aggregator, could decide that I'm not going to deal with this brand or whatever and cut you out, and so you've got zero control.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. Right.
That's one of the impact, right?
Exactly. And not only that, right? I also believe that my understanding is that a lot of these aggregators, especially when they get to a size where they are able to exert control and demand, over brands, they actually could ask for something that's called most favorite nation. And, like both of us have been in airline world, we totally understand what that means, right?
Correct.
So for the audience that, for the first time, this is what you heard, this is basically saying, if I were a large enough marketplace provider or third-party aggregator, I'm actually able to say, brand Classon, you are not allowed to go to the public and basically undercut the price that you allow us to sell your product at. So, so that means, I actually am not able to have, say, a lower price on my own website. And so if you don't do something additional, bringing value to your consumers, it's kind of like understandably, the consumer will be, well, if I go to this place, it's a lot easier, right? And it's the same price. So I'm not getting anything additional from you by interacting directly with you. So I am just going to sort of have preference over convenience. So that's, those are the things that third-party aggregator, I believe, have been able, to sort of put that kind of demand on brands. And that is not, what we really want to be able to, that is not what we want to see, right? Like we're here because we would love to be able to disrupt that third party, so the value chain, right?
Mhm.
We want to get back, for brands to be able to engage directly with the consumers.
That's actually fantastic. We got a time that will come to something that happened with me personally, exactly the type of incident you're talking about. So here's even a more interesting question for you. Given your impressive roles in the companies that we've seen, what attracted you to join the Kognitiv team? And what is your role as a senior vice president of platform
Right.
strategies? What does it mean, and what are you focused on?
Right. So I started the conversation with our founder, Peter Schwartz.
Yep.
And he's been on he's on one of the episodes as well, so he's always very passionate, right, when it comes to the topic of collaborative commerce.
Right.
And I think Peter and we really connected on this shared conviction that businesses should be the force of good, and businesses could be the forces of good. And, that really got me to sort of want to join a company, because that's what I believe, right? I don't believe businesses are a zero-sum game. I believe that partnership, working with each other, we will always sort of get to this point where 1 + 1 = 3. And I really believe the power of collaboration, the power of true partnership. So when I understand the concept and what we're building here over at Kognitiv, I immediately say, I'm in. I'm now on the bus, to quote Jim Collins' phrase that he used in the book, good to great, right? I'm on the bus, and I want to be part of the contributing force that really allow us to bring this to the market, to work with many brands, right, and then to enable everybody to take advantage of what we conceive as collaborative commerce and the solution we're bringing.
That's actually pretty good. So now, those are the things you're concentrating, focusing on in your role as SVP strategies, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. So let me get into that a little bit.
Yes, please.
I think we have a very clear vision. We are building a platform solution which includes platform technology, people, that means our experts across loyalty, e-commerce, and digital marketing, because we believe, brands, our clients, should really see these things as an integral part of their consumer journey, right? No matter which stage you are when you are interacting with your consumers, you should always think of in terms of, okay, so how do I get their trust? How do we, continue to build up their loyalty? That should be a continuous journey and a loop, right, with your consumers, and also processes. So that's how we are perceived. That's how we have constructed our business model and our solution. And so my goal, my role is, strategy. That means figure out what are the big rocks or the big stepping stones that get us to, from where we are now, to the future where we want to be. And the future where we want to be is we would love to be able to take advantage of the so-called network effect. We have the platform solution right? By which we are connecting brands with each other directly. They work together, they shared consumers in a safe and private ecosystem. And they also shared with each other their access services and goods. That will comes into, that means, you are able to bring value to your shared consumers at a cost-effective manner. That's what we're talking about, right? And, you can imagine that in this ecosystem, in addition to the parties by brands and their partners, we are also looking at consumers as, the third, kind of like the third sides of the network effect. So, by having more brands joining, the network, and they can bring in their own partners, or the other brands that are already in the network could potentially be their partners, right? And as we work with a brand more and more frequently, we will be able to, help you to engage with your consumers more deeply. We will be able to sort of entice them, incentivize them to share their preferences or declared intentions with you. And that's what we're calling zero-party data. I know we're going to talk more about that later. And so by doing that, right, the more data you have of your shared consumers, the better understanding you will have, right? The better understanding you will have, you will know, okay, so what's the next partner I should work with, to continue to engage with them more. Now you can see the network effect going. And so that's what, I want to be able to ensure that we can continue to take advantage to start the network effect and continue to grow and scale this entire platform solution. So that is my job, my role at Kognitiv.
Interesting role. Puts you ahead of the game and makes you think strategy, enabler, and all the things you talked about, which is very good. Um, Given some of the things we talked about, that they were happening, whether the brand realized that, maybe they did, maybe they didn't, because if you likes of the Amazon grew and whatever happened, a lot of people were caught trying to figure out what just happened, right? But now we have had, in the last 18 months or so, with the coronavirus and the pandemic and the lockdown and all that, has it amplified, expedited this issue? And can you please speak to it, how it's done and what the impact is?
And definitely. So this is very, I would use the word interesting, so it's neutral, right? It's been very interesting to watch all the headlines, even government regulation proposals, right? Because I think last Friday, the United States Congress, I believe it's a bipartisan set of proposals to put some sort of control over the sort of rampant growth of these third-party aggregators, right? We're talking about, Apple came out of the gate basically saying, we're going to institute ATT, the app tracking transparency. We're going to start doing that. And, everybody heard about their big fight with Facebook, right? And earlier I mentioned that we saw the financial reports from these companies. They are making a lot of money on ads because ads are becoming more and more expensive, right? On the other hand, though, we're also seeing consumers, unfortunately, many of them are forced to go online and start interacting with brands, on their e-commerce website, or, through a lot of it is through these third-party aggregators, right? So we don't believe consumers will completely go back to offline once the pandemic is over. And with all these things, sort of coming together, and my apology, I also forgot to mention that, Google has announced in 2 years, they are going to remove third-party cookie tracking from the Chrome browser, right? And I think I just want to remind everybody at this point that we do have to remember Apple and Google continue to retain their right to use first-party data, to sort of power their ad network. So that is not going away. So I think with all these things coming together, I see this as a watershed moment for brands to actually really say, you know what, now is actually an opportunity for us to think through how we should, how we should get the consumer's attention, right? In the day and age when you no longer have third-party cookies, that means first-party cookies, that means first-party data become more and more important. And we actually want to propose that zero-party data is really the fuel that you need to use, to power your entire conception of how you want to acquire customer attention, retain customer attention. And once you get to a point that you are able to show them the value, you gain their trust, you really are able to build up that customer loyalty, right? So that's what we are seeing the past 18 months. And right now, fingers crossed, thank you, science, we're getting vaccines. And, hopefully we're getting into the post-pandemic or the recovery phase, right? And then really now is a good time. So we believe that now is a good time to really sort of amplify our message, and so sort of working with you to tell the brands, all the business out there about this idea, right, of collaborative commerce, and how you can potentially work with complementary brands, to really, now is the time for you to start working on engage with consumers directly.
That's interesting. I also hear in what you said that you're addressing kind of the deep systemic problems that have existed.
Right.
That were kind of exposed by the pandemic, right? That's pretty good, because as we go into recovery mode, you're going to need everything firing, all cylinders firing, and then dealing with the changes. So that's pretty interesting. So then that leads to the fact that we know the cost of acquisition of a customer or developing a customer. The costs are quite steep. How does collaborative commerce actually help and change that?
Right. So I want to answer this question. I would like to answer this question in two parts.
Okay.
So the first part is, I know probably, some of the audience is already thinking, well, you're talking about partnership, right? Brands have had partnership forever, so what makes this solution or what you're talking about different? So we believe actually collaborative commerce as a concept has been has existed and has been evolving ever since the sort of advent of e-commerce, right? And a lot of brands, they have all their own partnership. And I think the thing is, though, in the past, without using technology help, building a partnership is actually a very long and arduous process. And oftentimes it gets to the point, okay, so once I find a partner, I can probably do one program or one campaign with them because it takes like 6 to 9 months or maybe a year, right? So what we're building here is together, again, with our platform solution, the platform technology, our experts, and our business processes. We want to be able to scale and make that partnership development and collaboration more efficient and in a scalable manner. So by that I mean that you can imagine, I just want to test out this segment of the customers that I know with this specific brand, because you have shared value, you have shared voice, right? And most importantly, you have shared consumers, right? But maybe within my ecosystem of consumers, I have another group of consumers. Maybe in this case, I want to work with a different partner. So we make it very easy for you to be able to work on different programs, targeting different consumers, right, with different partners. Because you can imagine that if you work, say, with even just a handful of partners, the values and the offers and the incentives that you can go out into the market, with your consumers are going to be personalized based on your understanding of your consumers. And, so that's the first part about, the more efficient partnership building. The second part would be when the brands partner together, and that's what we're sort of talking about when it comes to economics, right? Is that we all know that because planning is never perfect and distribution is never perfect. So most brands have excess inventory of their goods and services. So how do you, so the way we're conceiving is that you could actually take advantage of that, working again with a complementary brand, right? So by offering the brands, your partner brand, the excess goods and services, in doing so, they are able to offer the shared consumers your goods and services at a cost-efficient manner, right? And on the other hand, you actually get new consumers and new audience, based on the shared criteria of, okay, here's the share segment that makes sense for both of our sort of brand essence, right? And so that's what we're talking about when it comes to being cost-efficient way of driving customer engagement.
It's interesting. You reminded, both of us have been in the airline, airline industry. You reminded me of the fact that there are flights at certain certain destinations that are not booking well because it's an off period, it's a big day of the week. But you now know that directly because you are engaging and you have much more control over your brand. Could actually give value to your loyal customers, if you want to call it that.
Yeah,
that's kind of built into what you just talked about, right? Very, very interesting because I don't know if people know that too much today. So that's a very important point. So the cost efficiency is also pretty amazing because you can't compete with high cost these days. Now we've talked historically about strategic alliances. We've heard for a long time, you can't go it alone, have a strategic alliance. It's laborious to achieve. It also has downsides to that. Does collaborative commerce actually address this problem and help create cost efficiency, kind of some part we talked about?
Right.
Go ahead.
No. So I think your question is talking about, again, right? Like we have something that's called, maybe you call them affiliates or, something like some sort of partnership, right?
Yes.
And, right. And what we're differentiating ourselves with is that we have built a solution to operationalize and streamline the development of partnership, shared goods and services, right? And then consumer data, with the appropriate consumer consent, of course, again, in a private, safe ecosystem. And how do you bring all these differences, all these different pieces together into one streamlined solution? So in our model and our platform solution, we actually have built in rules and governance to solve for how the partners together will create value for consumers, how both partners or maybe more than two, because you can imagine that a brand decided to work with two partners to bring even more value, right? When they decide to do something, fantastic for their consumers. So how do you get the most value out of each other as partners? How do you strengthen your relationship with your existing partners? Because a lot of time these partnership is kind of like skin deep, right? And how do you, let's say, you don't really have existing partners, or perhaps you want to expand your partner network. So how do you discover and access new partners who are actually complementary to your brand? And, finally, how do all these things together, put together a bundled offer to provide value to the shared consumers so they are more likely to engage directly with you, the brand. And again, we are dealing with consumers that are bombarded with noises, with everybody that's trying to get their attention. It's not just the stores or the brands on the internet, right? Because when they're on the internet, when they're on the phone, they are dealing with many, many, many different things. And so, we want to help you stand out.
No, it's interesting. What you talked about actually made me think in that if you go traditionally, and we've all signed those deals, you sign a strategic deal for 5 years or whatever, maybe, or X number period of time, it doesn't work out because, like you said, a lot of things you don't know the answers to. You go with, depending on how you reviewed it, what you think, things have changed. Then you get stuck in that deal, but you're not getting value. Nobody's doing anything, right?
Right.
Correct?
Right.
What you are saying, if I heard correctly, through the platform, you're allowing them to build new partnerships, saying, don't worry about it. It didn't work out. You're not stuck into 5, 10 year, whatever thing. You work with whoever, and maybe more, right? Am I correct? Did I get that right?
Right. And then because, once it's a scalable solution, right? It's an efficient solution. That means you are not forced to say, I have this partner. I can only do it once because it takes so long. So I have to run this campaign or program offering the same thing to all the consumers in my network. Right. And because we're talking about personalization, we're talking about sort of preference-based offering. Well, then now you just kind of veer away from that intention. Right. Whereas when you're talking about we can run these programs, in a higher frequency, that frees you up to be able to say, how about we have this segment of consumers and I will work with this brand on this, because maybe this is a young, demographic, right? So we're going to work with a partner, maybe streetwear partners, to get them to think, okay, this brand is actually pretty cool, right? Like they get me, they understand me. And, a different segment, you can potentially work with a different partner, again, based on your understanding, your shared understanding of this group of consumers.
That actually is very interesting because it allows you to do things that we could not do today, and more control over your own brand and your customer, and that's pretty impressive. Now, we know that and I think you touched briefly on that. We know that brand loyalty shares the same imperative, right? However, due to the third-party aggregators in the middle, the brands have got no control or actually even understanding who the customer really is or what they want and so forth. How does, again, collaborative commerce help brand build that loyalty and address the data and whatever other issues generally? But how do you address that problem head on?
Right. So I watched the episode where you spoke with my colleague, Tim Collins,
Yes.
our chief data officer. I may be repeating a little bit about what he shared, and I think definitely the audience, if you want to know all about how we are using data science and analytics to solve the problem, definitely go back and watch Tim's conversation with Bashir. So I just want to say, I earlier mentioned, right, with all these attention on privacy, on consumers getting savvy and savvier, because they understand there's value in the data. And again, now is really the opportunity for brands to get back to the basics before all the cookies, before the online intermediaries, right? Be human first. Think of your customers as people and not just as advertising IDs. Think experiences and don't think of your engagement with them as transactions. Think zero party data. And by zero party data, will mean data that consumers intentionally give you and not just, in addition to first party data. So consumers, especially the younger generation, are increasingly scrutinizing who they trust, who they do business with, and who they give their data to. So when you as a brand are able to give them control over their own data, when you are able to provide transparency for your plan to serve them better and bring more value, and when you actually deliver that value, you will be able to start building the trust. And now you are in a reciprocal relationship with your customers. So how does our model and platform solve that problem? So our business model and our platform enables collaborative commerce, which provides, as I mentioned, a cost-efficient way for brands to create and offer these additional, differentiated, and personalized value for your shared consumers. And by doing this, oftentimes consumers will only engage you if they sense that you are providing them with value. You are helping them solve the problem. So when you provide value, you are actually able to start building that trust and that relationship with them. And that's what we would like to enable here.
That's actually very, very interesting. A couple of things came to mind, which I'll ask you in a bit as we go to the questions. Am I correct in making some assumption? One of the problems in the corporate world today, the brands don't have enough money to try and go it alone. Mm-hmm. Maybe a couple of brands may do, but generally, by and large, I don't think that's true.
Exactly.
So that's one problem that they need to addressing cost efficiency. But now within a company, if you're a large organization, we know they don't like to admit, but they got silos, right? Doesn't this concept and what you're doing for them actually help address that? Because on this platform, all these guys are using that. You are understanding not just the customer better because you're directly engaged, right? But doesn't it help you to understand your own business and understand, hang on, why am I doing this? So in other words, collaboration would also help them internally.
Exactly. And then so when we're talking about collaborative commerce, right, we're talking beyond the traditional idea of loyalty, kind of what you mentioned. Some companies, loyalty is sort of deemed pretty siloed. And a lot of time people are like, oh, it's miles and points. Right, it's points and miles and points, and as we all know, that even just people as travelers, you understand that oftentimes it takes you a long time to build up that cache of points and miles, and you are really not able to redeem them, for anything that's actually sort of experiential that will actually truly bring you joy, right? So what we like to do is we want to engage the industry, in a conversation, and we actually would love everybody to participate, to sort of start seeing collaborative commerce as a new way of thinking about how we, it goes back to consumer again, right? How you, from the first time you meet them, or even from the first time you're from far away, waving at them, saying, hey, look at me, right? Like, I really want to work with you, all the way through the entire life cycle of, how you sort of get them to become your number one fan, right? And then, in order to do this, you really need to think about loyalty, marketing, and also e-commerce, because that's how you interact with them directly, right? That's how you present yourself in front of them. That's how you bring value to them, because when I get to a point, if when I check out, if I had a bad experience, then it's almost like you have to start building the trust again. So you really need to think of these things in an integral solution. And what we believe that we can do is, by working with us, we will be an additive force, in your sort of strategic imperative to rethink, right? How do we get back the consumers from these third-party aggregators?
Very, very interesting. As I mentioned at the start, there was a situation that you actually addressed, but it happened to me real, where I bought something through Amazon, right? And then I realized that they had sent me an email directly, that company, and I called them, but then Amazon stepped in saying they cannot lower the price.
Exactly.
And I said, how do I deal with this? So I said, okay, I'll return yours. They said, why, you can't go buy from them the same product? They must have had fine print. And I thought to myself, this is crazy. So I had my brother buy it, to get around the problem. But
Right.
it's kind of crazy that that's happening. So I think one of the things, we'll hopefully leave a lot of time for questions now. In closing, some very powerful stuff you covered, even if we're trying to deal with high level. In closing, can you tell us who is leveraging the collaborative commerce today? Is there a particular industry, vertical, or type of climate that's best suited to collaborative commerce? And you have that expertise, and you have that, right?
Right. So our clients, we have a global list of clients across diverse verticals,
Right.
and across all the global regions. And I'll encourage everybody to go to our website and check out our client list. And I believe you'll understand that, I cannot really sort of specifically point out, what we're doing with which client, right?
Right.
However, I could definitely talk about in terms of verticals.
Yes.
So I want to say, almost any brand in the world, if you would love to be able to take back your consumers, instead of renting the audience from these third-party aggregators, you want to be able to engage with them directly. This is something that you should look into, right? So we actually have had success with clients in the financial vertical. Think about the banks around the world, because usually when they have a credit card or debit card clients, they would love for them to say, hey, we now have these new products. Maybe it's a premium card, right? They would love to be able to say, would you at least open this email and take a look, and see what I have to offer you, right? And that makes sense because it's already a private network of consumers, that consumers actually already trust you because you're their bank, right? So we believe that that's actually a great starting point. We also work with, we definitely work with travel industries. Just because, if you think about loyalty program, started out, in the travel industry, right? So, and we have retail clients, because a lot of retailers, and these are retailers that have already started thinking about this, because it's like they have loyalty program, right? They have points, They have our early access. We work with them on that. And what we are working with them on is that, okay, so now let's add more tools to your tool chest, because you can only add this many points this many times. You can only offer early access, this many times, right? So instead of sort of always just offering $10 discount or 10% discount, imagine a possibility that you could create offers for your consumers if you have partners that are, that want to work with you because they want to work with your consumers, right? Because now you are just sort of adding variety, to the potential, to the possibilities that you could bundle these offers, for your consumers. And now you just add variety. And earlier, I know that I mentioned, I mentioned that this will also give you the ability to personalize the offers based on your understanding of the consumer segment. Right.
Sorry, go ahead, continue.
Right. And I also just want to say one of the best example I want to use is hospitality, and the reason why is because the economics is completely whacked when you look at it.
Yes.
So several things about this, right? One, hotels, more than anything else in the world, has the concept called perishable inventory. If I don't sell out my hotels, all the rooms are perished tonight, right? Two, in the beginning, if you're talking about the impact of third-party aggregators on the industry, you don't have to look further than hotel. You have Booking.com, you have Priceline, you have Expedia, right? And they are all sitting in between, connecting the hotels with the travelers around the world. And except the large chain of hotels who are able to negotiate a better commission, my understanding is that the commission is averaged at maybe 30%, right? And for some smaller hotels who really rely on the online travel agencies, the aggregators of the world, to be able to even find the audience online, it can be as high as 45%. So just think about it, right? Like, I know that in business, we tend not to talk about fairness or what's not fair, what's fair. But as a human being, whenever I think about this, right, it really gets me very energized. Let me just put it this way, right? I am the hotel, I'm the supplier. I put in all the capital, asset extremely heavy. I am hiring all the service workers, right? And here's a traveler who really want to be able to have a great experience staying at my hotel, really enjoying their vacation because they need a break, because they work really hard. And so these aggregators, and I'm not saying they're not bringing any value, but if you think about it, it's atoms in the middle, zeros and ones, and bits, the actual capital, the assets, right? So the people that are, the companies that are sitting in the middle with zeros and ones, they're extracting most of the value. And that's why, I know this is running a little bit long, but that's why I love to use hotel as an example for how this would work. So as a hotel, I have excess inventory. I would love to work with the brands, right? Because I would love to have your consumers to check out my hotels. So by doing this, though, I'm actually able to offer you my excess inventory without dilute my price, without dilute my brand. Because you can say, Lin, just sell your hotel for $50 a night, because $50 you make tonight is extra $50, in your drawer. And my answer to you will be, no, I can't, right? Because once I put the price out there, that's my price. That's my brand, completely eroded, right? And, so pardon me if I use this very specific example, but again, in my head, this is one best example to illuminating the value chain, the economics, and why it's actually so important for us to start working, in the manner of collaborative commerce.
I think it's very, you did two, three interesting things for me, took me back in time with your reference to zeros and one, and I started going back into the hexadecimal days of COBOL and Fortran and all that. But very interesting. Here's that, because of the fact that a lot of things you talk about is building brand loyalty, trust. One of the things that you said actually sticks with me, in that when you are sending emails from this trusted brand, I know today, if you look at the amount that people open their emails, is fairly low, right? Because not everybody, especially if you think this, you don't trust this particular brand or whatever, or the aggregator, you're not likely to open unless you want something, you go there.
Right.
Doesn't this actually change that paradigm to actually, you get from a trusted entity, you can open a lot more because,
Definitely.
right? Go ahead.
No, you are absolutely right. And sorry, I'm smiling because this is one of the key points, right? Because why would I open an email from a brand that I have never heard of or never worked with? Because, maybe I don't, because I'm older, right? I don't mind, but I can see my son who's in, Generation Z, he's probably going to be highly annoyed, right? Because we know like how they feel about their privacy and data, right? So, he's going to be like, why are you emailing me? When have I sort of come in contact with you, right? So again, through this collaborative commerce model, the partner will actually be able to sort of reach out to a new group of consumers, right? Through the brand that they work with. And then, by doing this, we're really seeing win, 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 right? Because the brand wins, the partner wins, and the consumers also win. And that's why I'm very excited about what we're building here.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty powerful point. And I'm glad you elaborated that, because that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't open stuff that I go, what the heck? I don't want to hear from them. Oh, who are these guys? I tell sometimes people that, if they phone, so are you returning my call? I said, no. I said, then stop, bang, phone goes down. Because I don't trust them. I don't know them or whatever. So let's go to the first question, and hopefully there'll be more. The question is, retailers tend to own customers when a brand is being purchased. How do you manage the retail attitude of us versus the brands?
Okay.
So it's the retailer now versus the brand, and the retailer is trying to control what you get or don't get.
Got it. Okay. So by retailers, could I, like they'll be like, say, department store of the world,
yes,
or right. Okay. Right.
Yes, and your Best Buy, your Target, your Walmart, whoever.
Exactly. And so we are not so naive to think that brands, will no longer need to work with retailers, right? We'll no longer, have to work with, say, Amazon of the world, unless you're Nike. I think Nike is big enough to say, you know what, I'm not going to be in Amazon because my consumers will come and find me. And then so, what we're trying to do here is very similar to that, right? We want to help you bring awareness, to perhaps you will start small with just a sort of a relatively small group of consumers that you will be able to engage. But by bringing them value, so you build up that trust by sort of enabling them to engage with you directly, to understand what your brand is all about. There's a high likelihood that they will seek you out. Again, we're talking about the new generation, right? They really care about what brands they purchase, what brands they use, because I have read several studies where the younger generation really see consumption, as a way to sort of develop their identity, right? Like what brands I use actually say a lot about me as a person. So you actually has a power as a brand, So again, that's why I mentioned, let's get back to the basic. I know that we talk about brand essence, right? We talk about brand equity. And I truly believe the power in that, especially at the conjunction of all these trends, we just talked about. And, by using, say, taking advantage of collaborative commerce, taking advantage of the partnership that you're able to build, you will actually be able to reach out to them. And remember, you have to provide value, because otherwise, you are insulting their intelligence,
Yeah.
right? Don't just go to them and say, can you give me data, or can you answer this survey? You want to be helpful. You want to show that I understand you may like this, because I care about you, right? I pay attention to these breadcrumbs you have left, when we are interacting with each other. And attention is really the rare gift. So it's a reciprocal relationship, right? You pay attention to them and they pay attention to you.
Right. You're not using the data to manipulate and sell it. You're using the data to help them, and to both sides, in fact. Right?
Yeah.
That actually is pretty powerful. I don't know if there's any other questions, but if they're not, hopefully we'll have one. So that's actually pretty good. So you're gonna, am I correct in saying now, is that people haven't even seen the realignment that's starting to happen, but it's in the early stages, and those who are on their game and understand this are going to not only do well but survive. But if somebody's trying to go it alone here, they're taking some pretty massive risk, unless, like you said, you're Nike or whatever. Then there's a big risk here. Would that be true? That they need to really step back and rethink this?
Yes, and definitely, right, we're not saying, because we believe that most brands will continue to participate in a third-party ecosystem.
Right.
Right, you need that. But I think in the meantime, though, it's important to start thinking about, how do I build up the direct-to-consumer relationship, right? Because take advantage of how this younger generation like to interact with brands.
Right.
I would say, though, two things. If you don't mind your goods and services are commodified, meaning that you just want to sort of do as many transactions as possible, you don't really need them to know who you are, and you don't, you don't mind that your consumer just like, well, I can buy A or buy B, it's interchangeable to me, right? Then, you don't have, this may not be something that you want to work on. Right. Two is that if you have unlimited marketing budget, you have unlimited marketing resources to really dive in and drive this direct engagement with your consumers, then maybe you don't need to think about this solution. However, I do expect that most brands, they don't want to be in the commodity business. Most brands, do not have unlimited budget. In fact, most of us are being asked to do more with less, right? And so what we're proposing here, again, is an efficient solution to help you do this important thing that we need to do right now, which is to get your name out there, to convince consumers to interact with you directly, to the point where they don't mind sharing their data with you so you can better serve them. And then you start your own network effect.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. So here's another question. We've got a couple of minutes left, so hopefully you can summarize some part. But hotels have suffered greatly, and you talked about that just now,
Mm-hmm.
especially during the pandemic for different
Mm-hmm.
reasons because of lockdown or whatever.
Right.
Uh, you think they will rely more on the Expedias of the world or the hotels.com more than before the pandemic in order to speed up the recovery? Or you think this type of option could be very good for them?
I would say both, because again, most hotels will have to continue to rely on the online, so the agencies, right?
Right.
However, we are encouraging, the suppliers in the hospitality industry, actually across all the industry, to really start thinking about, you cannot give up on this channel. Like, you
Right.
cannot give up on the direct channel. So most of the hotels do have their own sort of direct booking websites. And one way to do it is that you want to encourage the travelers to come to your website versus going to booking.com, because they all have profiles on booking.com, right? And so the Cognitive Cloud Commerce platform were able to enable you to, one, get new consumers, the consumers that you would like, by working with another brand, be they a retailer or in the financial industry, or a lot of or companies in the media. For instance, they have subscription services, right? So they may wish to introduce some kind of offer, to their subscribers. So the subscribers will either upgrade to the next tier, or maybe, come renewal time, the subscribers will continue to stay on, in the subscription, right? So this actually allows the hospitality providers, again, to have a different way to say, hey, this media subscription subscribers, we are these hotels, right? And we know, like, you like adventures. So maybe, if I am a hotel that's next to a national park, I will actually be able to sort of get in front of you, get your attention, and hopefully you will consider me, because now there's awareness, right? And next step is that they will book on your website directly.
Fantastic. I think if I heard you correctly, even with this other question, it's not either or. Provide more alternatives to your customer, to the brands, so they can get to you. And then you decide at some point in time when now it's meaningless to have this couple of things. They're high maintenance because you're getting bulk of your business here and you're building trust on this particular channel as opposed to the other one. And yeah, you can provide more value through your own websites or whatever. There's no harm in doing that. So that's actually very interesting. It's
Yeah.
folks. As we run out of time, I'll tell you very quickly that we were telling you why you wanted to hear Lin, and you can see her background, a significant background in the different industries, is playing out because as she has articulated the issue, and you were right, Lin, when you talked about Peter has been incredibly passionate on this,
Mm-hmm.
and he talked about it a year ago, and I thought to myself, this is pretty interesting where he's going with this.
Mm-hmm.
And then he articulated some of the things. You now drill down to provide what he was talking about. So in other words, you can take the executive summary and say, here is now what this is all about. It's pretty powerful. And
Right.
to those who are watching here, fantastic. Thank you for taking time to listen to Lin. And we are recording this, so we'll make it available as we find a lot of people go watch it there too. And we will definitely make it. So I don't know how to thank you. It's fantastic what you did today because you articulated. I learned a lot of interesting things. You know, you think you know quite a bit, but as I said, no, you learn every day new things. So this was very interesting, and you gave me some ideas too. So we may have there's some ideas. I'll talk to you separately because this could be very interesting. But Lin, thank you very much. Lin
Thank you.
is the Senior Vice President of Kognitiv Corporation. And the platform, now you understand what the platform does. And the links are all there. You will find out more about how they can help you. Just fire in a note directly to us. We'll forward it to Lin and people at Kognitiv. So thank you for doing that. Really, truly appreciate that. It was very enjoyable. And as I said, it was interesting learning as well. So thank you, Lin. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. From Business and Technology Professional Association of Canada, big thank you. Timothy Chisholm just not to say
You're very welcome.
thank you. You can see the note there.